You're lying in bed. Everything is quiet. And then it surfaces. That thing you said 3 years ago. The awkward silence you created last week. The moment you tripped in front of strangers. Your chest tightens. Your face feels hot. Even though you're completely alone. Why does your brain treat a minor social mistake like a threat to your survival? And why can't you let it go when everyone else already has? Let's start with what this actually feels like. You're at a gathering. You make a joke that doesn't land. There's a beat of silence. Someone changes the subject. And for the next 3 days, maybe 3 weeks, maybe longer, you replay it. You cringe. You imagine what they thought of you. You construct entire narratives about how they remember you now. As awkward, as trying too hard, as someone who doesn't quite fit. The strange part? If you ask those people what they remember from that night, they wouldn't mention your joke. They might not even remember you were there. But your brain doesn't care about their memory. It only cares about yours. And it keeps serving you that moment. Over and over. Like a song stuck on repeat. This isn't a personality flaw. This isn't because you're too sensitive or overthinking everything. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protecting you from social exile. In an environment that no longer exists. Here's the first thing you need to understand. You are not broken. You're experiencing something psychologists call asymmetric memory encoding, which is a technical way of saying this. Your brain records your embarrassing moments in high definition, while other people's brains record those same moments in rough sketches. If they record them at all. This isn't because you matter less. It's because of how human memory works. When you're the one in the moment, you're the protagonist, the main character, the one under the spotlight. But from everyone else's perspective, your background noise, a supporting character in their story. And they have their own spotlights to worry about, their own embarrassments, their own moments they can't let go. This is called the spotlight effect. And it's one of the most persistent cognitive biases in human psychology. You believe you're more noticed than you actually are. You believe your mistakes are more memorable than they actually are. You believe people are thinking about you when they're actually thinking about themselves. Let me show you what's happening inside your brain. When you do something embarrassing, 3 systems activate simultaneously. First, the amygdala. This is your threat detection system, your ancient alarm bell. For 99% of human history, social exclusion meant death. If your tribe rejected you, you didn't survive winter. You didn't escape predators. You didn't reproduce. So your amygdala evolved to treat social threats the same way it treats physical threats. A tiger chasing you? Code red. Someone laughing at you? Also code red. Your rational mind knows the difference. But your amygdala doesn't. It just knows social rejection equals danger. And it wants you to remember, so you don't make that mistake again. Second, the hippocampus. This is your memory encoder. And here's where it gets interesting. When your amygdala signals danger, it sends a message to your hippocampus. This moment matters. Save this. It's like bookmarking a page. Except the bookmark is made of adrenaline and cortisol. This is why you remember embarrassing moments more vividly than pleasant ones. Your brain literally encodes them differently, with more detail, more emotional color, more sensory information. But here's the crucial part. Everyone else at that gathering, their amygdalas didn't fire, because they weren't the ones making the mistake. They were observers, not participants. Third, the prefrontal cortex. This is your narrator, your meaning maker. After the embarrassing moment, your prefrontal cortex starts constructing a narrative. What does this mean about me? What do they think of me now? Am I awkward? Unlikable? Weird? And because your amygdala is still activated, because the memory is still fresh and painful, your prefrontal cortex has a negativity bias. It interprets the event in the harshest possible light. Psychologists call this catastrophizing. You're not remembering what actually happened. You're remembering your brain's worst-case interpretation of what happened. So you have this perfect storm, an ancient threat system that overreacts to social mistakes, a memory system that encodes those mistakes in high definition, and a narrator that interprets those mistakes as evidence of your unworthiness. Meanwhile, everyone else's brains? They're doing the same thing, about their own moments, not yours. Hashtag practical framework. So how do you work with this? How do you break the cycle? Not by forcing yourself to just get over it. Not by pretending it doesn't matter, but by understanding what your brain is trying to do and giving it what it actually needs. Here are 5 principles, each grounded in how your psychology actually works. Hashtag principle 1. Name the spotlight effect out loud. The next time you're spiraling about a social moment, pause and say this either in your mind or out loud. I'm experiencing the spotlight effect. This is called cognitive diffusion in psychology. You're not trying to stop the thought. You're creating distance from it. When you name the bias, you activate your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, and it starts to quiet the amygdala. Research by Thomas Gilovich at Cornell showed that when people recognize they're experiencing the spotlight effect, they immediately become more accurate in estimating how much others notice them, by about 40%. You're not dismissing your feelings. You're contextualizing them. My brain thinks this is a big deal, but my brain is designed to overestimate social threat. So this feeling doesn't mean what I think it means. Principle 2. Use the October 10th 10 memory test. Here's a practical exercise. Think about something embarrassing that happened to someone else. 10 minutes ago. You probably remember it. Now think about something embarrassing that happened to someone else. 10 months ago. Harder, right? Now think about something embarrassing that happened to someone else. 10 years ago. Unless it was truly extraordinary, it's gone. This is called the forgetting curve. Discovered by Hermann Ebbinghaus in 1885. Human memory decays exponentially. Within 24 hours, you forget about 70% of new information. Within a week, about 90%, unless it's emotionally significant to you, which is why you remember your own embarrassments, but not other people's. So when you're spiraling, ask yourself, do I remember what someone else did that was embarrassing 10 months ago? If the answer is no, why would they remember yours? Principle 3. Reframe awkwardness as social calibration. Here's a perspective shift. Embarrassing moments aren't signs that you're broken. Your brain is learning, okay, that joke didn't land. Adjust. Neuroscientists call this error-based learning. Your brain literally needs mistakes to build better social models. The artists who create masterpieces, they have hundreds of failed sketches you never see. The comedians who make you laugh, they've bombed on stage more times than you can count. You only see the smooth final performance. You don't see the calibration. So when you cringe at a memory, try reframing it. My brain was calibrating. I was learning where the edges are. That's not embarrassing. That's human. Principle 4. Practice the observer's perspective. This is a specific technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. When you're replaying an embarrassing moment, you're experiencing it from the actor's perspective. You're inside your own head, seeing through your own eyes, feeling your own feelings. But here's what helps. Mentally step outside yourself. Imagine you're watching the scene from across the room, like you're a neutral observer. What would you actually see? Probably something much smaller than what you felt. A brief moment, a slight awkwardness, then life moving on. Psychologist Lisa Libby at Ohio State found that when people view their embarrassing memories from a third-person perspective, the emotional intensity decreases, the rumination decreases, and the memory feels less personally defining. It's not about denying what happened. It's about seeing it accurately, not through the distorted lens of your activated amygdala, but through the lens of reality, which usually looks like this: a small moment in a long night, already fading from everyone's memory, including, eventually, yours. Principle 5. Build a cringe journal. This might sound counterintuitive, but here's why it works. Once a month, write down the most embarrassing thing that happened to you. Just 1 or 2 sentences. Then close the journal. 6 months later, open it. Read what you wrote. You'll notice something interesting. The things that felt unbearable at the time, they barely register now. This is called exposure in psychology. You're training your brain to see that embarrassment is temporary, that the feelings fade, that the story you told yourself wasn't accurate. Over time, this creates new patterns. Your brain starts to predict, okay, this feels terrible now, but based on past data, I'll feel fine about it in a few months. And when your brain can predict recovery, the initial threat response weakens. The rumination shortens. The memory doesn't stick as hard. You're essentially building evidence. Proof that your catastrophic interpretations don't come true. And your brain learns to trust that evidence. Integration. Let's bring this together into one simple mental model. Something you can return to whenever the cringe hits. Think of your embarrassing memories like photographs. When they're fresh, they're vivid. High contrast. Every detail sharp. But photographs fade. The colors dull. The details blur. Eventually, they become hard to make out at all. And here's the key. Your photograph is fading in your mind. But in everyone else's mind, it was never developed in the first place. They were looking at their own photographs, their own moments, their own embarrassments. So when the memory surfaces, when you feel that familiar heat in your chest, remember, this is not reality. This is a photograph, taken by an overprotective camera that thinks every social mistake is a matter of life and death. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to pretend it doesn't exist. You just have to see it for what it is, a fading image, from a moment that already passed, that everyone else has already forgotten. And eventually you will too. The deeper pattern. There's something else worth understanding here. Something that goes beyond individual embarrassing moments. This whole pattern, the rumination, the cringe, the conviction that you're being judged, reveals something about how you see yourself. Psychologists call this self-consciousness, but not in the casual sense. In the literal sense, being conscious of yourself, aware that you exist as an object in other people's perceptions. When you're very young, you don't have this yet. You don't know that you appear differently to others than you do to yourself. But somewhere around age 2, something shifts. You develop what psychologists call theory of mind. The understanding that other people have minds, separate from yours, with their own thoughts, perceptions, and judgments. And once you have that understanding, you can never fully turn it off. You become capable of seeing yourself from the outside, of imagining what you look like to them. This is both a gift and a burden. It allows for empathy, perspective-taking, social connection. But it also allows for shame, for self-judgment, for the kind of spiraling you're experiencing. Neuroscience shows this clearly. When you think about yourself from the first-person perspective, your own feelings, your own thoughts, one network activates. When you think about yourself from the third-person perspective, how you appear to others, a completely different network activates. In fact, it's the same network you use to think about other people. You're literally treating yourself as a stranger, someone to be evaluated, judged, criticized. And here's what this reveals. The embarrassment you feel isn't really about what happened. It's about the story you're telling about what happened. And specifically, the story about what it means about your worth as a person. The event is neutral. You said something awkward. You tripped. You laughed too loud. But your brain adds interpretation. This means I'm awkward. This means people don't like me. This means I don't belong. And this is where you have more power than you think. Because you can't control what happened. But you can influence the story you tell about what happened. The self-compassion bridge. There's a concept in psychology called self-compassion, developed by researcher Kristen Neff. And it's different from self-esteem. Self-esteem says, I'm better than my mistakes. Self-compassion says, I'm human, like everyone who makes mistakes. Self-esteem requires you to be special, above average, better than. Self-compassion requires you to be normal, flawed, part of the shared human experience. And here's why this matters for your rumination. When you cringe at a memory, you're unconsciously asking, am I still worthy despite this mistake? You're treating your worth as conditional, something that can be gained or lost based on performance. But self-compassion offers a different framework. Your worth isn't conditional. It's inherent, not because you're special, but because you're human. And humans make mistakes. All of them. Every single one. The person you admire most has a library of cringe memories. The confident person at the party has moments they replay at 3 a.m. The successful person you envy has said things they wish they could take back. When you can hold this truth, when you can really internalize it, the grip of embarrassment loosens. Not because the memory disappears, but because it stops meaning what you thought it meant. It stops being evidence of your unworthiness and becomes evidence of your humanity. The paradox of memory. Here's something strange about how memory works. The more you try to forget something, the more you remember it. This is called ironic process theory, discovered by psychologist Daniel Wegner. When you tell yourself, don't think about the pink elephant, you think about the pink elephant, because your brain has to monitor for the thought in order to suppress it, and that monitoring keeps the thought active. So when you try to force yourself to stop cringing, when you try to delete the memory, you're actually reinforcing it, giving it more attention, more emotional energy. The alternative? Let it be there. Don't engage with it. Don't fight it. Don't analyze it to death. Just notice it. Ah, there's that memory again. And then return your attention to the present moment. This is called acceptance in psychology. And research shows it's far more effective than suppression. When you stop fighting the memory, it loses its power. It becomes just another thought, passing through, like thousands of others every day. Eventually, it flows by without catching, without pulling you under. It's there, but it doesn't define your experience. The growth hidden in cringe. There's one more layer to this. One more reason your brain holds onto these moments. Every time you cringe at a past version of yourself, you're actually experiencing growth. Think about it. You only cringe at things that don't align with who you are now. If you made that same joke today, you wouldn't cringe. Because you've changed. The cringe is the gap between who you were and who you've become. Which means, cringing is proof of evolution. You're not the same person who made that mistake. You've learned. You've adapted. You've grown. So instead of seeing the cringe as torture, try seeing it as evidence. Evidence that you're not stuck. That you're capable of change. That you're becoming someone slightly wiser with each awkward moment. Your brain is literally different than it was then. New connections. New patterns. New understanding. And every embarrassing moment was part of that process. Not because embarrassment feels good, but because it showed you something about yourself, about the world, about how to navigate both. Quiet, empowering, close. So here's what I want you to remember. That thing you did that you can't stop thinking about? The moment that makes your stomach drop? The memory that surfaces when you're trying to fall asleep? Feels enormous to you because you were there, inside it, experiencing every second. But to everyone else, it was background, a footnote, a moment that came and went while they were thinking about themselves. You are not defined by your most awkward moments. You are not the sum of your social mistakes. You are not the harsh story your frightened brain tells about those mistakes. You're a person learning to exist in a social world, making mistakes, adjusting, growing. And the embarrassment you feel? It's not a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that you care, that you're trying, that you're aware of how you affect others, which is actually beautiful. Even when it doesn't feel that way, the memory will fade. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will fade. The way all photographs fade, the way all moments pass, the way all pain eventually softens. And one day you'll think about this moment and you'll feel nothing at all. Maybe a slight smile, maybe curiosity about who you were then, but not shame, not heat, not that desperate wish to go back and change it. Because you'll understand what you're starting to understand now. You were never under as much scrutiny as you thought. You were never as memorable as you feared. You were never as broken as your brain tried to convince you. You were just human, in a moment, doing your best, with the awareness and skills you had at the time. And that's not something to cringe at. That's something to honor. You're okay. You were always okay. If you liked the video, then please like, subscribe, and comment.